I want to begin with a quiet truth, the kind of truth that doesn't shout, doesn't rush, and doesn't need permission to exist. It simply lives in the heart, somewhere in this vast world, among billions of stories and endless timelines. There's one soul that feels written into mine. Not perfect, not scripted, not designed by fairy tales, but real, human, beautiful in the way sunlight is beautiful when it touches ordinary things. She is my dream girl, not because of numbers, not because of time, not because of age, but because of the way my heart recognizes her before my mind even understands why. People talk about destiny like it's loud and dramatic, but I believe destiny is quiet. It shows up as a feeling you can't explain, a calm certainty that whispers, there she is, the one who makes the world feel softer. And today, I want to talk about that feeling, about love that doesn't measure years, it measures connection. Sometimes life moves quietly. No dramatic music, no grand announcement, no flashing sign telling you that everything is about to change. It just happens in a small moment, in a simple breath, in the space between one heartbeat and the next. You look at someone, and suddenly the world feels different, softer, slower, like the noise of everything fades into the background, and all that remains is a feeling you didn't plan for and can't explain. I never believed love would arrive like that. I thought it would be loud, obvious, impossible to miss. I thought it would follow the rules people talk about, the timelines everyone agrees on, the expectations society hands us before we even understand what love really is. But real love doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for approval. It doesn't care about the numbers we attach to life to make ourselves feel safe, because love is not a calendar. Love is not a clock. Love is recognition. There's something extraordinary about the moment you realize someone feels familiar to your soul. Not familiar like you've met before, but familiar like your heart has been quietly saving a space for them long before you knew their name. And when they finally step into that space, everything inside you exhales at once, like you've been holding your breath for years without realizing it. She is my dream girl. Not because she fits some fantasy, not because she looks like the stories we were told growing up, but because when she exists near me, the world feels kinder. And kindness is the rarest kind of magic. People will always ask questions. They'll search for logic. They'll try to turn love into math, into timelines, into rules that make them comfortable. They will say love should happen at the right time, with the right numbers in the right order. But the heart has never been good at following instructions. It doesn't understand schedules. It doesn't read calendars. It simply feels, and when it feels deeply. There's a quiet courage in loving someone honestly, a courage that doesn't look like bravery in movies or stories. It looks like vulnerability, like standing in front of another human being with your defenses lowered and your soul uncovered, hoping they won't turn away, hoping they see the truth in your eyes and recognize the same quiet certainty you feel. Because love is not possession, it's not control, it's not the need to prove anything to anyone. Love is a peaceful understanding that two lives, moving at different speeds and shaped by different experiences, can still find a rhythm together. When I think of her, I don't think about numbers. I don't think about time. I think about moments, the kind of moments that don't ask to be remembered but stay with you anyway. The sound of her laughter breaking through a quiet room. The way conversations feel effortless, like words don't have to struggle to exist. The way silence doesn't feel empty when she's near. Silence can be terrifying when you're with the wrong person. It feels heavy, awkward, like a space you need to fill quickly before it becomes uncomfortable. But with the right person, silence becomes a place to rest, a place where you don't need to perform or impress or pretend, a place where simply existing is enough, and that is where love truly lives. It lives in the comfort of presence, in the simplicity of being understood without explanation, in the quiet realization that you don't have to rush, don't have to prove, don't have to chase perfection. You can just be human. She doesn't need to be perfect. I don't need perfection. Perfection is cold and distant and impossible to hold. What I need is real. Someone who laughs imperfectly, dreams imperfectly, lives imperfectly, and still shines in a way that feels warm and true. Because real love isn't about finding someone flawless. It's about finding someone whose flaws feel safe. Someone whose imperfections don't scare you away but make you want to stay. Someone who reminds you that being human is not something to hide. The world teaches us to measure everything: success, time, achievements, milestones. We grow up believing life is a checklist we must complete in the right order. But love doesn't belong on that list. Love belongs in the spaces between the check marks, in the unexpected turns, in the detours that don't make sense until you realize they led you exactly where you were meant to be. Sometimes love shows up early. Sometimes it shows up late. Sometimes it shows up when you thought you were ready, and sometimes it arrives when you least expect it. But whenever it arrives, it brings the same quiet message. This is not about timing. This is about connection. Connection is rare. Real connection is even rarer. It's not built in a day or proven in grand gestures. It grows slowly, quietly, like roots beneath the surface where no one can see. And one day you realize those roots have grown strong enough to hold something real. When I say she is my dream girl, I don't mean she exists in a dream. I mean she feels like a dream I didn't know my heart was dreaming. The kind of dream that doesn't fade when you wake up. The kind that stays with you in daylight, in reality, in the ordinary moments of life. Love doesn't have to be dramatic to be powerful. Sometimes the strongest love feels calm, steady, like a quiet promise whispered by the universe instead of shouted from the rooftops. There's something beautiful about loving someone in a way that feels peaceful instead of chaotic. A love that doesn't feel like a storm but like a gentle sunrise. Something that grows brighter slowly, naturally, without forcing the sky to change too quickly. And maybe that's what makes it real. Real love isn't rushed. It doesn't demand. It doesn't pressure. It simply exists, waiting patiently for two hearts to recognize each other. Her. We spend so much of our lives searching for big moments that we forget how powerful small moments can be. A shared laugh. A simple conversation. A glance that lasts 1 second longer than it should. These are the moments where love quietly begins, not in fireworks, not in dramatic declarations, but in the calm realization that someone else's presence makes your world feel more complete. And maybe that's the most honest form of love, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind that doesn't need approval, the kind that doesn't ask permission to exist, just a feeling, a connection, a quiet certainty. When the heart finally feels at home, something inside you becomes quiet for the first time. The constant rush, the noise of expectations, the pressure to figure everything out, it softens. You realize that peace was never a place you had to find somewhere out in the world. It was a feeling you were always meant to share with someone. I used to think love would feel like excitement all the time, like fireworks, like racing thoughts, like something loud and impossible to ignore. But real love doesn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it arrives like calm water after years of waves. Sometimes it feels like rest after a long journey you didn't even realize you were on. And when you meet the person who brings that feeling, you begin to understand something important. The heart doesn't search for perfection. It searches for peace. She is my dream girl not because she completes me, but because she reminds me that life isn't meant to be completed. It's meant to be shared. Two imperfect people walking side by side, learning how to exist together in a world that never stops changing. People like to believe love follows rules. They want it to fit into the timelines they understand, the expectations they've built their lives around. They want love to make sense on paper, to look correct to the outside world. But the heart doesn't read rules. It doesn't understand expectations. It doesn't measure the distance between years and numbers. It only understands connection. And connection has its own language. It's spoken in the way someone listens when you talk about things that don't seem important to anyone else. It's spoken in the way laughter feels easier, the way silence feels lighter, the way time moves differently when you're together. Minutes feel shorter, hours feel softer, the world feels less heavy. Time is strange when you're with the right person. It doesn't disappear, but it changes shape. It becomes something you stop worrying about and start experiencing. You stop counting moments and start living inside them. That's when you realize love isn't about how long you've known someone. It's about how deeply you feel known. There's a difference between being seen and being understood. Many people will see you, few will truly understand you, fewer still will accept you completely. And when you find someone who does all three, something inside you shifts. The world stops feeling like a place you have to survive and starts feeling like a place you can live. Love doesn't erase your past. It doesn't rewrite your story. It simply walks into your life and says, you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. And suddenly the weight you've been carrying feels lighter, not because it disappeared, but because you're no longer the only one holding it. That's the quiet miracle of connection. It doesn't change the world overnight. It changes how you walk through it. When I think about her, I don't think about time. I don't think about the distance between years or the numbers people use to measure life. I think about the distance between two hearts shrinking until it disappears. I think about the moment when unfamiliar becomes familiar, when uncertainty becomes calm, when the future stops feeling like something to fear and starts feeling like something to look forward to. Because love is not about rushing toward the future. It's about being present enough to build it slowly. We are taught to chase big dreams, big goals, big achievements, but sometimes the biggest dream is simple: to find someone who makes ordinary days feel meaningful, someone who turns quiet mornings into something warm, someone who makes the end of a long day feel like coming home, no matter where you are. Home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a person, and when you find that person, the world stops feeling so big and lonely. It becomes smaller, warmer, kinder, not because the world changed, but because your heart did. There's courage in admitting you've found someone who matters. Not the loud kind of courage that demands applause, but the quiet kind that asks you to be honest about what you feel. The kind that asks you to stand still instead of running away. The kind that asks you to trust something you can't prove, because love cannot be proven. It can only be felt. It lives in the spaces between words, in the pauses between conversations, in the quiet understanding that doesn't need explanation. You don't choose who your heart recognizes. You don't decide when connection appears. It simply happens, and suddenly life feels different. And maybe that's the most beautiful part. Love doesn't ask for perfection before it arrives. It doesn't demand that you have everything figured out. It meets you where you are, as you are, and says, "This is enough. You are enough." There is something deeply human about wanting to share life with someone. Not because we can't live alone, but because life becomes richer when it's shared. Joy feels brighter, pain feels lighter, even silence feels more meaningful. When two people walk together, the journey changes. The destination matters less, the path becomes the story. And maybe that's what love really is: choosing to walk together, even when the road is uncertain, the future is always unknown. That's part of being alive. But when you find someone who makes the unknown feel less frightening, you realize the future was never meant to be faced alone. It's strange how one person can change the way you see everything. The same sky looks different, the same streets feel warmer, the same life feels fuller. Nothing outside has changed, yet everything feels new. That's the quiet power of love. It doesn't rebuild the world, it rebuilds the way you experience it. And when you experience life differently, everything begins to shift. You begin to notice the small things more. The way sunlight moves across a room, the way laughter lingers after a joke ends, the way moments become memories before you even realize they're happening. Love teaches you to slow down, to pay attention, to be present, because presence is the greatest gift we can give each other. In a world that constantly pushes us forward, love invites us to pause, to breathe, to exist in the moment without worrying about what comes next. And in that pause, you realize something simple and powerful. This is what it means to feel at home.